This one should be a lot of fun. Okay, 3 days ago, I made a YouTube community post saying next Ramble will be an AMA, ask me anything. Ask anything in the comment section and I'll answer the top rated ones and others I find interesting in my next Ramble. Only rule, keep it focused on old school RuneScape. Now, of course, you weren't able to see the only rule unless you clicked on read more. So a few of you got pretty hasty and just went down in the comment section asking about IRL topics. I am not against making a future video where I cover and I go in depth on some of these IRL topics because a lot of them are really interesting. It really is just up to you guys. I know there's probably a handful of you that will just dislike anything that's non-RS related. Like, get it out of my feed. I don't care. But if you are interested in like another follow-up video, I know there was some questions about like my Mormon background and like some trip stuff, regarding some of my mushroom trips. If you guys are interested in that, drop a like down on this video and let me know down in the comment section. And I might even just make a completely new community post that is focused on those IRL things. So just let me know if you're interested. Also, I said thank you for the continued support. I do love you guys. Thank you for all you do for me. This is a dream to have as like a career path of just talking about RuneScape. So thank you very much. Bottom of my heart, for real. Okay, let's get into the first one. Oh, also I should say, I will just be covering all of these for the most part, unless they're repeat stuff. So I'm going to keep them pretty brief. Okay, Mandrew73. If you could design one new PVM encounter for OSRS, what and where would it be? And what would its mechanics look like? And what general loot and uniques would be on the drop table? So I think I'm going to use a cheesy answer, which actually comes from my Clue Guild idea video, where I talked about like a double agent boss, where like you would get some... I don't know how you would get into that fight. That's besides the point for this question, but you would fight a double agent Yuri guy that is actually like super hard, and he could like spawn duplicates of him, and you'd have to find out which is like the right one, and just have a really fun fight. And I don't necessarily know what all the mechanics would look like. That's just one I addressed. General loot, it's really about dropping clue scrolls. Now, this, I believe, would be under the assumption that there's potential for being able to not necessarily to have stackable clues, but just to be able to hold additional clues, which in my opinion is like the best way to go about the idea of stackable clues, is not to just make them infinitely stackable in one inventory spot, but just to allow you, for example, if you were to do like TOBs or any sort of raids, you could get an elite, and rest assured you could still get a second elite if you stayed with the boys on the team and you ran some more. But then you'd have to do both clues at the same time. So I think that would be kind of cool, like a double agent. The Great White 813, what are your opinions on the progression of Ironman mode? What is one Ironman focused update you think was a great addition to the game, and one that you think goes against the spirit of the game mode? So the progression of Iron mode, I mean, every single Ironman mode has gotten significantly easier over the years, and that's just to be expected. And honestly, the more I've kind of thought about it and read like posts on Reddit, a lot of the community is truly entering their 30s at this point, which I am trying to, just I'm trying to be aware of the demographic of this game now. We're not all like entering college and just have unlimited free time. So I think it is fair and it's appropriate that this game has gotten progressively easier, but I feel like we still need to be careful on it. And I also feel like there shouldn't be things that are made easier just for the sake of being easier, but it should be really focused on quality of life. Like, what is actually going to make this game more fun? Not just come out with anything that makes it so you can get your achievements done quicker and easier. An Ironman focused update that I think was great. Well, one that goes against the spirit of the game mode is definitely Scar Essence Mine, which I'm not going to go into anymore. But I just think doubling down on the idea of GPscape or Shopscape in general. And I know the point of it for most people in their heads are thinking this is getting away from Shopscape, but getting away from Shopscape, in my opinion, is not to triple what Shopscape gave and just to de-incentivize it. It's really just to eliminate Shopscape and go back to and don't focus on achieving those rates. Just cut it out and give us something that's fun, engaging, and has it just makes sense for the Ironman mode, not just something that's kind of like blanketed, but it's really just Shopscape at the end of the day. And a good update, I would probably say, let me think about this. If it's Ironman specific, because I know there's been some really good updates just for the game as a whole, but Ironman update, probably the sandstone grinder, which I know is so funny, but like, because I feel like people also draw that same comparison. So people are going to think I'm just an absolute lunatic, probably clicking off the video right now. But the sandstone grinder was a good, that was a great way of implementing classic sandstone mining and giving it a purpose. Because before that, I believe the crafting meta for like the longest time was hopping worlds at charter ships and just buying some sand, buying some seaweed, competing with people. That was a Shopscape method. But yeah, I mean, that it was just good that they made it so now you mine your own resources, pay a guy. The only thing I think that could have made it a little bit better is like the ability to almost like craft your own buckets from logs or something, like just really get into that Ironman spirit of creating everything instead of just buying a bunch of noted a bunch of noted buckets from some guy at the shop. But I do think that was a really healthy update, and they were pretty careful on balancing that. And yeah, I think it's cool. I also think like giant seaweed, I think that is really what we should be aiming for. It did make the skill a little bit easier, but it made perfect sense. And it wasn't just like giant seaweed was put in 400 GP into a seaweed and it turns into some magical giant. It's like, no, you're actually farming giant seaweed, which I thought was cool. So that's my answer for that. Pikachu Killu, to this day, which podcast guest was your favorite to feature on the channel and why? I'm going to say Bodhi. Actually, Bodhi was really sick and he hadn't streamed for a while. He had just uploaded a couple videos, I believe. But during that time, I was approaching episode 73 of the Sebe cast, and I was like, I'm just gonna shoot my shot. Like, I've never been like terribly active in Bodhi's community. I guess his community really is like the OSR's community at the end of the day. But like, I was never really active in his stream and stuff, and I just felt like I'm kind of leeching. I feel like that's anybody that's reaching out to a bigger creator. It feels like you're asking too much. But I asked Bodhi to come on the cast, and he was like super, super humble and just willing. And it just made my fucking week. And getting him on and being able to talk for 5.5 hours with the guy for the first time ever, for like literally, that was our first time ever speaking. And it just went super well. I was able to get to know him really well. I met him in Tennessee just earlier this year, which was like just amazing to meet him in person. But that really was just a phenomenal cast. And that also helped my channel as well. Like when I look in the analytics, like that helped boost my channel a bit. So shout out to Bodhi and shout out to for him coming and just being so willing to come on my cast. OG Mikey B, what are your thoughts on power creep, progression, and OSRS recently compared with a few years back? Do you have ideas of how power creep should be handled going forward without making existing content continually easier and easier? I think so I am totally for power creep, but it just needs to be very incremental and it needs to make sense. But we also need to have an honest discussion with the community about when things should be binned. For example, yes, technically every weapon still can have a place if you're playing very slowly. Like there's still a place for a rune scimitar as like an early Ironman. There's still a place for a whip very briefly, but if you're trying to be efficient, you really just kind of rush a Fang or you rush a Sail Door and you just kind of progress that way. I think we need to have an honest conversation about like what should we try to keep around for a few years. And in my opinion, the blade of Sail Door, the mace, and the rapier should really be like that kind of free best in slot kind of category or tier that shouldn't be completely binned for another few years. I think like maybe by like the year 2026, 2027, we could be like, okay, now those are kind of like the binned items. They still kind of have a use, but now we're coming out with like even better bosses that, you know, are going to have like that stab, slash, and crush option. And these are like the new best in slot. And who knows, do we need to have some sort of cost associated with it? I don't know. But as long as we just have an honest conversation, honest dialogue about like, okay, we can appropriately kind of bin these items. These are like, you know, the second best tier now, and let's move forward in a healthy way. I think it's all just about discussion instead of just kind of throwing things in the bin without addressing in the community. And then people are like, what, this piece of content just came out. Like what just happened to this? That's what it kind of felt like with the Nightmare Staves. The Nightmare Stave, like the harm staff was literally good for about like 2 years. And now it's just like a PvP item. And we haven't really addressed it. It's just kind of like, okay, this weapon's kind of dog shit now. We have a shadow. So, yeah, I think really just how it should be handled is like power creep is essential in my personal opinion. Let's just have an open dialogue. Montreal, what are your thoughts on stackable clues in the main game? Only with completion of all tiered unique, spade, casket, clue sack, etc. Obviously with some lore behind it. These were stolen from Watson and he unlocks the capabilities after they are all returned. I am not entirely against the idea of having like an inventory slot that has a number above it showing that it's actually a stackable clue. But in my personal opinion, I think the best way to go about it is to just, like, if the community really wants it, first of all, I already think clues are fine as they are. I don't think they need to be stackable in any sense. But if the community wants it, I think the best way to go about it is actually to not have them be stackable, but just let you be able to hold as many clues as you want. And they would not be stackable. So, you know, technically you could have 10 elites, but you would have to have the inventory space, the bank space for it and everything. But the cool thing about that, and this would actually be a buff over stackable clues, is that you could have like, you could be doing 5 elites at the same time technically. And you could kind of plan out your clue, you know, route based on, ooh, like I just got an elite that has a, you know, go to, the DKs or something, and let me just make sure, you know, let me do the other 4 elites and see if I can get like a double one where like another one sends me to the DK layer as well, so I can kind of be more efficient with it. So that's my personal thought. I think stackable is maybe not the way to go about it, but just allow you to hold more. Yeah, that's my take on it. All right, 6th Prophet Banger. Why do you think OSRS resonates with us in our age group so much? For me, I think it's the feeling of nostalgia and enjoying it with friends when I was young. I try and play other games, but I never feel the same as I do when playing RuneScape. What do you think it is? So Mandrew just had a little reply. He says, for me, I think it's that all the time you put in feels like it adds up to something. If you're a gamer who plays new titles and dozens of games, then you're just having fun one game at a time. But then either starting over or never playing your save files again once completed. There's nothing wrong with this way of playing, of course, but no OSRS, it feels like if all of the save files from every game you ever played were combined into one. Call it delusion or call it whatever, but for me, time spent in OSRS feels like an investment. I will also say, personally, I remember growing up and literally fantasizing with my brothers about a game that could come out that would be like, you know, GTA 5. This is before GTA 5 was ever, but it's like a game where not only is it like GTA 5, but it's online. You can enter every single room of every single building. You can create whatever you want. Like you can do whatever you want in this game. And it's really just like a real life simulator. It's like just, you kind of just play the game and it really is just endless and you can do whatever you want. And I think part of that fantasy was fulfilled for the most part in RuneScape, where it does feel like this endless thing where you can really do whatever you want. You could become, and this is again with my childhood mindsets, like I could have been like a woodcutter and gotten 99, or I could have just, you know, started being like a mercher and doing this. It just felt like the game was so open-ended and you could do whatever you want. I think personally for me, it was just like that freedom of being able to do whatever you want and travel the world and talk to people. Like you don't even have to play the game. You just role play. Like that idea of a game hits so hard. And the other thing that resonates is old school does not have traditional microtransactions. I know it has bonds technically, which are microtransactions, but for the most part, we don't see these cash grab things where like you log in and there's like, hey, buy this bag of gems for $100. Like, dear God, like if RuneScape were to have gone down that road, like none of us would really be playing it. That's kind of what we see with RS3. Like not many people are playing RS3. I know RS3 is technically still like a good game, some people say, and Ironman mode exists for it, but like I think a big reason a lot of us do play is because they haven't tried to make it into an entire cash grab, which people respect deep down. I also think the nostalgia of it resonates with us. I think a lot of it is nostalgia still, and it's just nice. It's just nice, like, you know, clicking a tree or clicking a rock and getting like an XP. It just feels, there's something just deeply satisfying about just working toward a goal, and not many games have that to this extent. All right, J-Bro, do you think they should move mixed hide armor to PVM content? For example, giving the teaching PVM boss unique drops so it's worth doing. I'm worried they're packing the Hunter Guild with too much content and they'll be dry for future content rewards. I know what he's talking about, like the mixed hide armor, which is like that new stuff that's coming out from the Hunter Guild. I think what they try to do, and it really is just a case-by-case scenario. A lot of the time, they'll just come up with an update that just they're giving too much into it, or there's too many things going for it. But it makes it really exciting to a lot of people, like just having an abundance of stuff coming out from one update. So I don't know. It's really just case-by-case. I don't actually think the Hunter Guild is going too far by any means whatsoever. I don't think there is too much content. But I understand that sentiment with certain things that have come out. Like Chambers kind of felt like that on release. I mean, it came out with like a Dragon Harpoon, Dragon Sword, Dragon Throne, Dragon Throne axes, and like just every, you know, just 15 brand new uniques, which felt like, okay, this is just like huge. This is just dominant. It felt like that with Zulrah even. Like you're getting a best in slot mage weapon and a best in slot range weapon and a best in slot melee helmet. It's like, I know it was only 3 items, but it feels like you're doing a lot. Now those are in the early days, so it really is a case by case situation for me. Veruxium, what are some of your very long end game goals? The more obscure or random, the better. Really, and I haven't really changed this for a while, but I haven't changed this at all since I made it like years and years ago. But really, my very end game goal is to complete a full third age set. Like that would just be absolutely wild on an Ironman to just walk around Gielinor rocking a full third age set. Like how much more badass could you really be in this game? So that's really like my very end game goal. Obviously, it's hard to stick to that because there's always new content. And it's not like I'm just purely focused on that. That just seems to me to be like I've truly, in my mind, completed the game at that point. But I still enjoy other aspects of the game, skilling and PVM, and I want to get other items. But that really is long-term goal. Okay, Bren, do you think the Inferno would be as well received if it were released today? When it was released, we were fresh off of Chambers of Xeric's release. That is a really good question. And I think it's hard to say because Inferno really did get us to a higher state of like a higher skill ceiling. So I'm just trying to imagine like if we still had, I'll paint the scenario like this. Like if we still had all the skill level today and just somehow there wasn't the Inferno earlier on and they're releasing it right now, I think people would complete the Inferno in the first few attempts. Like some of the players would complete the Inferno in the first few attempts, I personally believe. This is assuming the Inferno comes out in its current state. So I believe like there was a few bugs and glitches in Inferno's original release where like the mage, if it like respawned something, it would get off tick and stuff. But if it was what it is now, I don't think anybody would have anybody that is in that super high tier gamer category would not have a problem with it at all. I think it would just be a really fun piece of content, and people would get their infernal capes pretty easy. And yeah, but that would be really interesting. That would be, it would be cool to kind of see how that would play out though. Like, just to really see what the reaction would be. Aaron B, how do you feel about changing the blood rune usage of the Scythe saying to 1 or 2 blood runes? This can come in the form of a new unique from Taub and could address the blood rune dilemma without having to fundamentally change the rune crafting skill. Yeah, so I've changed my stance on this to I do think there should be cost associations to best in slot weapons. Mage weapons can retain that you have to charge it with runes. That makes perfect thematic sense. But melee weapons, I really feel like should now be charged with GP. And I've come to this conclusion based on a lot of the community feedback. A lot of people, in regards to Ironman mode specifically, people don't feel like there's a good enough use for GP at the end game stage. And I think the perfect solution really is GP can be obtained anywhere. And what if, your Scythe or your Fang or whatever comes up in the future, if it's a best in slot melee weapon, had a cost associated where it's very convenient to charge up. This is kind of like the dilemma I'm at. Like, would I prefer to be degradable or charged? And it really is charged, but charging stuff with GP doesn't really make sense, but degradable and repairing it makes sense with GP. Anyway, it would basically be like you go to your POH, you go to your armor stand you've built, or you go somewhere else, or you go to an anvil or something, and you just pay the fee that it would take to charge up your weapon, and it's just GP. And it would make sense because now you do have more of a variety, like a choice in the matter of what weapon you're pulling out. Do you want to use a free weapon? Do you want to use something that's going to be way more powerful, but it does have a cost association? So personally, that would be my optimal solution. If we are keeping the blood rune situation and people feel like the Scythe's too expensive, I personally don't think so. But if people do feel that way, I would not be against making it so the Scythe only uses 1 blood rune per successful hit splat. So the max amount of runes you'd be spending per swing is 3, but if you hit 0, 0, 0, it wouldn't use any blood runes. So, yeah. Okay, Ellis Sartol. What are your thoughts on the trend of giving cosmetic rewards for completing challenging content? They create less controversy since they don't affect gameplay, and although less controversy has value in of itself, is the prestige of owning them enough compensation for completing a tough challenge? Yeah, I mean, I'm totally for the cosmetic, like having rewards purely be cosmetic. I think Blood Torva is a wonderful example of what they've done. Is like, there is literally no other reason to do the awakened versions that are very difficult unless you just want to flex on people. You're not getting anything best in slot. And I think for the very most challenging pieces of content, I think that really is the way you should go. Because then that content can remain pure. Like, it doesn't need to be made easier because you're technically not getting anything besides a flex. It's the same thing with pets. If you needed pets for extra DPS, they would drastically lower the rates of pets to make it a lot easier. So yeah, I'm totally with that. I also think there is always situations though where you could have like a new best in slot item as well. So it's just case by case in my opinion. Not talented. For someone without IRL friends who play RuneScape, how would you suggest finding a community to play with? This is not a question I can answer. I don't really have IRL friends that play RuneScape. I mean, I've had a few, but no one that I've met in real life has ever dedicated themselves to this game as much as I have. So I've always felt like in college I had a few friends that played RuneScape, but they were just even at that time when I wasn't the Sebe you guys know now, I was still a noob. I didn't have an Infernal Cape, barely knew. I still seemed like such an elitist compared to them. I took the game so much more seriously. So I guess the way of finding a community is just join Discords and then see if people are in your area. I get like that. I know it's not meeting them in real life first, but yeah. Tatey GB, any new game modes you'd like to see? Do you think they'd make a non-Iron Leagues ever? Best skill cape is Max Cape OP. Do you think sailing would be a good skill? Stackable Masters. New game modes I'd like to see. I would love to see, like, this is debatable. It does not need to come into the game. I feel like there is an argument that people say that, like, don't make this game more convoluted than it needs to be. There's already plenty of game modes. We don't need more. But I'm totally cool with an idea of Mithril Man. I'm cool with Bronze Man if people wanted it. Mithril Man is basically like you can trade everybody that's a Mithril Man. Like a Mithril Man is its own economy. You can't use the GE. You can PVM with other Mithril Men and get drops together, and you can, do any content you want. It's basically like a giant group Ironman. The cool thing about it is it's kind of like a fresh economy in a sense. Like you start off as a Mithril Man. If you get to like these end game pieces of content, you just have this fresh economy where there's a bunch of other Mithril Men, and you're the only guy that, just pulled a T-bow or something, and you can sell it for like a shit ton. But yeah, I think that would just be really fun to kind of have like a fresh economy that's still integrated into the game. Bronze Man mode, just like Iron Man, but as soon as you get an item, you can buy it on the Grand Exchange as well. And same goes with like resources. So it kind of feels like a main with progression. Do they think they'd ever make a non-Irons league? I think they could, and I would actually like that, but it would just have to be how they're doing it right now, where like there is a goal, which is like 50k points to get Dragon Trophy. That's it. There's no real competition. You just get it yourself. Obviously, it would be clan man mode. Like the top rated people would obviously have probably abused alts and, abused their clans. That's totally fine as long as we can just accept it beforehand. I think it'd be a fun league idea. Best skill cape. Ooh. If you're like trying, I'm going to rephrase this question and say like best untrimmed skill cape. And I would probably say best untrimmed skill cape is, that's so tough. Probably say RC. I think RC just looks really fucking clean. I almost had an untrimmed crafting cape on my Ironman. This is before like all this crafting updates, so I really like that. That somehow that still has like this grip on me. I think untrimmed RC and untrimmed crafting look great. Is Maxscape OP? Yes, it's incredibly OP. If we could go back in time and never have added any perks to the Maxscape, I know that's how the Maxscape was originally introduced. It didn't have any perks. That would have been so much more healthy for the game. I stand by that. I know people are addicted to their Maxscapes, but I really feel like that had so many detriments that I'm not going to go into on this video. So it's extremely OP, yes. Do you think sailing will be a good skill? I have faith in the team that sailing will be a good skill. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll see, basically. Stackable Masters, again, I kind of already answered that, so we'll just move on. JJ Crow, would you say maxing is worth it overall? I'm 2,200 total on my iron, but some skills like agility and rune crafting are not particularly enticing to me. I find myself procrastinating these in favor of PVM. Yes, maxing's worth it. The Maxscape is broken. Andrew Smith, do you think we need a mage armor set that sits in similar positions as Bandos and Arma? I mean, that's kind of like Aram's in a sense. I think Ancestral will kind of fit that as well in a couple of years, in a few years. I think we maybe do in 3 to 4 years for an entirely new, like just super Ancestral. So no, I don't really have too strong of thoughts on that. Saxer Pillar, do you have any thoughts or opinions about the general anti-HLC sentiment in the OSR's community? Okay, so yes, I do have some thoughts on it. The thing that really bothers me is like there have been some absolute creeps in the HLC. Like clearly, like there have been some incredibly cringe allegations and people that have gotten perm banned and just crazy stories. and it has just overall made a very it's basically made the HLC a laughingstock, which is fair. And I don't think you can really not be a laughingstock when you dedicate your life to RuneScape and you're a full grown ass adult. But what I worry about generally is this anti-HLC where no matter what, if you're in the HLC, your take is invalid. And instead of having any rational argument against anything that comes out, and a lot of the HLC has very rational takes and they really care deeply about the health of the game. Now, some of them remain pretty jaded and kind of have that elitist, purist mindset, which can't really be shaken, which I don't agree with those takes generally. But I think it is appropriate to just take a step back occasionally and see what they're saying for what it is instead of attaching the anime profile or, K-pop girl profile and just instantly degrading anything they're about to say just by, making a joke about it and then retweeting it and just having everyone else just shit on them for really no reason at all. So, yeah, I think everything generally is like, just treat people as people. Don't group them in with somebody. Like, has the person done any wrong? Base them off their merits, basically. Like, what have they done? If they're a shit person, yeah, you can, that's one thing. But if you just think they're like this because they're in this group that you've decided they're in, yeah, I feel like that's just unhealthy. So, lol and oob 3. Haven't watched in a while, and I might have missed it somewhere in the ether, but I really want to know what you experienced during that trip where you decided you wouldn't be taking psychedelics again, or at least for some time. I would definitely love to talk about this, but I'm not going to cover it in this video. So let me know if you guys are interested in that, because yeah, it was wild, and yeah, I would have plenty to talk on that subject. Scallop, how many hours do you play per day, and why is it 16? A more serious question: if you could rework one skill currently in OSRS, which skill would you rework and how? Yeah, so how many hours I actually play, like over my whole course of playing on Sebe, my current account, I've probably played around, I want to say, I haven't calced it in like a year, but at the time it was around 8.5 hours I had played on average every day. And by this point, it's probably around 7.5 because I've significantly dropped my hours over this past year. So, we might just be writing right under 8 hours per day, but recently it's been a lot less. If we could rework one skill, it'd definitely be thieving. I think thieving is just so silly that it's basically just spam clicking, and it's just so AIDS. Like, it's just click, 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 get stunned, click, 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 get stunned, click. It's like, holy shit. So I know there's other methods to it, but I feel like not only could you come out with other mini games that just make thieving feel more fun, but we could really have an honest discussion about thieving, like just pickpocketing in general. Like, is there some way we can navigate the shittiest feeling of getting stunned? Like, is there something that's a topic for another time? But yeah, that one really needs to get updated. Packy, where do you see gear progression going over the next few years? I would just say, I think over the next few years, I think by 29, like within the next 6 years, we're gonna have something that's better than Masori, better than Torva, and better than Ancestral. That's what I personally think. And probably guaranteed something that is on the same niche as a Scythe, but it's just better in every way. Hard to say. The Mactastic, if you had to make a 5-man group Ironman, who would be the dream team? Oh God. It's really tough. Just put me on the farmers. Just fucking put me on the farmers. That would be the dream team. Now, I really don't know. I haven't thought about this enough. Andrew Prost, Jagex in the past flirted with RS as an esport with DMM. Do you think there could be an OSRS competition with the power to gain broader viewership? If so, what might that game mode minigame look like? So I'm not going to address what it would look like, but there is potential for OSRS to be like an esport, but it's tough because there's so much RNG involvement in it. And I think what you would really need is like more of like a Castle Wars kind of thing. So not like 1v1 stuff, but more like very team-based strategic thing that's really fun and has a ton of nuance, like kind of like CSGO matches, like a 5v5, kind of like a capture the flag. Like if we could really like rework a Castle Wars and make it so it's very fluid and functional and really addicting and fun and balanced, that could have so much potential. Because it's not just get lucky on your freezes, get lucky on this. Like if everything was like consistent freezing, or like there is no real RNG element to it, like as long as you can, do the proper pathing correctly. Like, I don't know. I feel like there is a way to make it into an esport, but it can't just be 1v1 fights. What do you think of group Ironman in leagues? Make it unranked and all members have to pick the same zones. Yeah, that I think that would be really fun and cool. I'm cool with that in the future. How do you feel about having such a large part of your life dedicated to a video game? Again, this is kind of more IRL, so I'd be down to answer this more in depth. But I'll just touch on this, I guess. Like, it is interesting. Sometimes I look and I'm a 28-year-old man at this point. And I'm like, holy shit! Like I have been playing this game since 9 years old. Now I did take an 8-year break technically, but like it really is strange when I look back on my life and I just think there has been so many influences of RS in my life where it's kind of been a part of me. Like it really is like a part of me in a sense, which is kind of cringe, but at the same time, it kind of keeps me grounded somewhat in a weird sense. Do you think OSRS needs to implement ELO for PvP? Can 5v5, oh my God, this is exactly what I'm talking about. 5v5 Castle Wars be revamped for a competitive game? Yes, I truly do. It doesn't even need to be Castle Wars. Just totally get people that really are high level. I know Adicon really got into Castle Wars like years back. If you could get Adicon in a call with like some other people that are like known for loving Castle Wars and just completely from the ground up design a capture the flag based mini game, it could be so good. And I do think that would be hella enjoyable for a viewer to watch. And I do think ELO is important, especially LMS. I mean, obviously there's bots and stuff which just break LMS, but if in a fantasy world, like in a world where there would be no bots and LMS had a perfect ELO system, that would be so addicting. Like I've gotten into chess here and there. Like I haven't played chess for several months at this point, but I would get into chess and like just getting a little bit of ELO rank, like that itself is the addiction, just like getting a little bit better and seeing that number go up. It's really cool. Austin Fair, would you be interested in removing free trade from the game? I believe it would remove most of the bots from the game and make the remaining bots more manageable. No, I'm actually against that. That's actually what made me quit back in the day. I do play an Ironman, so it wouldn't really affect me that much, but no, that would be really bad for the game. Even though there would be a very good change from it, which would be no more real world trade and no more bots for the most part. There would still be botting, but it would be like for gaining ranks. But no, that would not be good. Jones, which skills need updates? Which skill would you buff XP per hour? What item would you increase the rate of collecting and how? Jagex recently added the Warp Scepter as a mid-game trident. What other mid-game items should Jagex help or add to help Ironman progression? Or should people just get good and grind out what already exists? Okay, so skills that need updates: thieving, mining. I think rune crafting could still have some touches to just make traditional rune crafting feel more fluid and enjoyable. Skills that you would buff XP, definitely wood cutting. And I'm not saying this would be assuming you get rid of forestry events and just make the trees more rewarding in general. Like I wish forestry events had never come into the game, and I wish they had just really focused on the core of woodcutting, which is very simple and traditional and old school, and it's just chop tree, get log. But the higher tree you get up to, like, you are getting rewarded fairly. I think just being fair in the balancing of trees is really important, and we still haven't touched on that really. What item would you increase the rate of collecting, and how? Probably, I almost want to say chambers could get a look at. I think like going 500 hours for a TiVo is a bit rough. I might even say Corp could be looked at. I talked about this in the last Sebe cast, but there's nothing really that comes to mind. I mean, there's so many things that could see an increased rate. I mean, Nightmare Orbs, again, that's going back on the past cast I just had. Other mid-game items, haven't really thought about that. So for the most part, like there definitely is some, but I just can't think of any at the moment. MPS, do you think updates would be better or worse if polling was removed? Assuming no MTX would ever be implemented, of course. I think updates would be worse if polling was removed, just slightly. But I think even if polling was removed, there would still, like, Jagex would still scrap things. I mean, we see that all the time. Polling, most of the things pass anyway, and things get scrapped. And, like, for example, like the two-handed axes, Jagex is very aware of what the community is saying on Reddit and Twitter. Like, nobody really wants the current state of two-handed axes. And there doesn't even need to really be a poll for that. Like, people are aware. So I do think it'd be slightly worse if it was removed. But we could get to a point where, like, we need more of a statement and a vision going forward from Jagex and from the community of what we want this game to become. Do players want this game to become an idle simulator? That's a legitimate question. I personally think that would destroy the game slowly, just incrementally over time. It would just destroy it. But if people want, skilling to become an idle game, like, that is actually an argument to be had and a discussion to be had. And if we just ignore it, or we never touch on these topics and truly have honest discussions about where this game needs to go and what is crossing the line of cheating, what are the core problems of this game, botting could be talked about. Like, just there's things we just need honest conversations about, and we need to all be in the loop together. We are a community at the end of the day. We need to be in this together. We need to see what is best for the game, what would destroy the game, have actual arguments and, science, as strange as that sounds, like, have the data backed up with, like, okay, we've done this in the past, look what the negative effects have been, look what the positive effects have been, and truly just get to a point in the community where we're all in it together and we have, like, a course set for the game. And then at that point, polling could be removed and we could really just give all the power to the team. Yeah. Dakota Jones, what are things you miss from the early days of Ironman, and what do you not miss? The things I really miss from the early days of Ironman, this is really, like, just my own experience, is I miss being a noob, and I miss having those players that I just look up to so much. Like Lelador, Say Aloe, Iron Higer, like, just all of these absolute goats. Iron Man Flynn, Hauke, like, there's so many to name, but there were players that I just absolutely admired, and I really missed that. They just were in a different league, and I was like, damn, like, I will never be there. And I really missed that, like, that just admiration for high level players. And what do I not miss? Trying to think. There's a lot of things I really miss. I think it's a lot of nostalgia, but I think the things I don't miss is how poor some of the quality of life we had. Like, some of the dogmatic views we had. Like, for example, for like a year and a half, we had this decision made from the team that left click pickpocketing ham members was not a good idea. So we had to right click and then left click. Right, like with Vyres and elves, you had to right click and then click pickpocket down. Like that kind of bullshit that stays in the game forever until finally we come to our senses and realize this is just stupid. Fix this shit. That is what I think I don't miss. And that has been, I mean, in current day, but throughout my entire time playing this, like there are just clearly things that need to be looked at quality of life wise. And they're not looked at for years on end. And it's just ridiculous. The Ninja Hawk. What do you think the end game of GP on an Ironman looks like? And what other uses would you like to see for raw cash? Raw cash, as I stated earlier, like my stance has changed. In best in slot melee weapons in the future should have a GP charge cost association. Raw GP, where your GP now matters, and so if you have a plenitude of GP on an Ironman, for example, you can just fund it into just enjoying your super best in slot weapons. But if you want to, profit a little bit more, get a fewer kills per hour, but profit significantly more, you could just use those free baseline weapons like the mace, the Saildor, and the rapier. Like those would kind of be like the baseline. Of course, those baselines will end up being second baseline in a few years. But I think that would be a great use for GP personally. And another question, what do you think about the trend of new best in slot taking longer to acquire than old best in slot? And is it healthy to start scaling drops into the 75-hour range? What other systems might you like to see that could give best in slot items without scaling up the top? Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, in the future, what are we going to do with, like, if we come out with a new raid that has like better items than Ancestral, like, can we be honest as a community and decide like, hey, it would be okay at this point because Chambers is the easier raid. We've had raids 4, we've had raids 5. Like, could we go in and slash the rates of those previous raids? So you getting up to these very high level raids, it doesn't feel like you need to skip Ancestral entirely. For example, if you're a new Ironman and you have Chambers, but you have raids 4 that has just a better Ancestral in every possible way, why even do Chambers? So what if we were to just have that discussion openly and honestly and say, hey, what if we just made Chambers uniques more common? Could people get down with that? Like, yes, your time was devalued because you played back then and you went hard on it, but would it be okay to look at the future generation of this game and say, hey, we could just slash the hours on this piece of content? Same thing with like Nightmare, same thing with any piece of content. Like, we could go in, slash the hours, and make it so that can still kind of be a middle ground up to the very best in slot item. So yeah, that's a discussion for the community to have. What day is most fun day you've ever had on OSRS? From Not Talented again. Most fun day was probably the release of Fasani's Nightmare. I know that sounds crazy, but like Fasani's Nightmare was such a refreshing update because I had just done like 9 months straight of normal Nightmare. And it was such a refresh of that fight. And then I got my Inquisitor's Mace on hour 17 of my 18-hour stream. And pulling that mace was like a dream. So yeah, that was probably my most fun day. I've also had some really fun like birthday streams and other things like that. But yeah, that's up there. Kassan, would you want to have skills exceed 99 to say 120 and have more of a reason to get XP post 99 other than just high score ranks and 200 mil all? I don't think skill should necessarily go above 99 like perks wise, but this is my personal opinion, I would love to see 200 mil capes. No perks, just 200 mil capes. And I would like to see that because there is that, you don't need to add it to the collection log. Skill capes are not added in the collection log. This would not be something that people have to do. But if you are a post 99 skiller, which there are people that like that, you have to be aware of that. For people that are like, that's fucking stupid, like grow up. Like there are people that care about that kind of stuff. And if you had a little teeny incentive, which is just a little bit more of a flex on your cape, I think that's totally appropriate. And there is that end goal in mind to kind of keep you motivated a little bit more. Big Meep, what would you like to see in Raids 4, such as location themes, rewards, challenges, bosses, etc.? Ooh, yeah, I'm not really sure on this. Yeah, like that's a good one. I'd have to make a future video talking about this a little bit more. I could just ramble on for a few minutes on this, but I really don't have anything at the top of my mind currently. You Stunna. If OSR is shut down tomorrow, what would you do? What would you do financially, and would you main a different game? If OSRs were to shut down tomorrow, I think there would probably be some like private servers or some. We would like mass migrate to a different game, I think. And this is just such a this is just like a non-event. Like this couldn't happen, obviously, tomorrow because they would just boot up the server. Like there's just so much money incentivizing keeping the game servers up. So hard to say, but what would I do financially? I would really try to remain a content creator, but I would try to really dig into more of my passions. Like I do have passions, but they're things that I haven't built a community upon. And so it would be kind of like building from scratch again. But if people enjoy what I do, but enjoy me as a content creator rather than just the content I put out, then I think I could have a portion of my current, viewers and followers join me in my future pursuits. It obviously wouldn't be as big, but I think it would be interesting to see where I would go with that. Lighting, what would you want to see in the next Clue Scroll update? Clue Guild. I'd love to see a Clue Guild. Tony Pledger, are you playing League 4? Which regions are you picking, and what was your favorite league so far? So I didn't play Leagues 1 or 2, and I just briefly played Leagues 3. I generally am not a big fan of Leagues, mainly because I just don't like my progression ending, like coming to an end and getting my progress deleted. Am I going to play Leagues 4? I'll probably give it a fair try because people say Trailblazer was just real fun, and this is going to be just a revamp of that. I don't know which regions I'm picking. Sinister RNG, how was your account progression from the start to where you are now, and what would you change if you did it again with the new content? How was your account progression from the start to where you are now? I mean, I really played the game as I wanted. I never did any like Ironman guides or anything. I just did exactly what I wanted to do. I chose my own methods that I found enjoyable. And if I were to do it again, I would go the same route where I wouldn't ever follow a guide. I would just play my Ironman and just do the things that I enjoyed back then and find some other methods. And really, when it comes to building my account, like skilling wise, I really love tick manipulation. So I'd find those really fun tick manipulatable skills and do those. R. Robert, is there anything that would make you want to try playing the next Deadman mode? Not really, unfortunately. Like, I'll be brutally honest. Deadman mode has never appealed to me playing wise. I played the original Deadman mode, like World 345, and I died within like the first hour, and it just had left a bad taste in my mouth, and it's just really not for me. How would you make Ironman in 2023 great again? There's a lot of things. Obviously, just having open and honest discussions about rebalancing of skills and really pinpointing what makes content fun. Just a brief example, Motherload Mine. There are things in Motherload Mine that are inherently unfun. Pinpoint those and make the changes. Why are we being masochistic about the game? Like, we can have healthy updates that are good for the health of the game, but still pinpoint what is just a bad feeling. Like there are parts of methods that just feel like shit, and there's good reason for why they feel like shit, and let's pinpoint those and fix them. So I think that is really what it is. Like just going in and pinpointing things that just don't make sense, like rates wise. Like there's limitless things I could talk about with this. So that's really my main point, is like, just let's have honest discussion about things that feel bad and things that are unbalanced. Listens to stuff. Would you sacrifice RuneLight and any non-vanilla client to remove bots? Yes. I would. If there was a perfect world where all bots are removed and there would never be future botting, first of all, Jagex's client is getting progressively better and better and better and better, and that is the vanilla client. So if you're talking like pure vanilla where nothing can ever be updated and we're going back to like 2013 vanilla, like holy shit, that would be awful. I'd still say yes, but bots are such a stain to this game, in my personal opinion, and it's like the one thing we should be focused on more than anything else. So I would sacrifice Runelight because we already have a decent client that Jagex is coming out with, and yeah, 100%, not even a doubt in my mind, I would choose that. It would be rough. I mean, don't get me wrong. Runelight's amazing. This is not to shit on Runelight. Runelight's incredible. Alistair Parker. When are you making an OSRS series? I remember you saying on Top Tuesday you had one in mind. I do have one in mind. I haven't fully committed to it, mainly because I'm just nervous. I think I'm a little bit apprehensive about if I'll enjoy it as much as I feel like I will. Plus, it does require some plugins, which I've been talking to Idle about, so not to leak anything, but there are things that need to be implemented first, fully. Cham, not really a question, but are you coming back to streaming? Miss seeing your account progress, even if you don't stream anymore, or even if you didn't stream anymore, I'd love to see vids or clips of your account progress. So I did stream twice this week. I'm trying to get back into it. It's definitely one of those things where, like, sometimes if I'm not playing a ton and I want to, focus on myself and focus on just other IRL goals, I feel like I kind of back off from streaming a little bit, just because generally streaming in my mind is like sitting down at the computer for 6 hours straight and playing the game, where I don't know. But I'm trying to kind of reincorporate that in my life because I really do enjoy streaming. It's just I psych myself out. Like I give myself unnecessary anxiety from it, and that's personal issues that I'm not going to go into. But I will be streaming more often, yes. Russell Johnson, do leftovers become leftovers when they are placed in the storage containers or before? Yeah, so that's just I don't know if it's not RuneScape related. Danny, will you ever make a fresh Ironman account again? Probably, and that would be the series that I talked about earlier. Do you think summoning can fit in OSRs? I never played summoning, ever. Never touched summoning, ever. And I think it could be cool, but it would drastically change the game, so I think it'd be better not, but I think it could fit. Yes. What are your current goals? Current goals is just continue to enjoy the game, enjoy the aspects of what I like, which is a little bit of skilling here and there, a little bit of collection logging, a little bit of gear upgrades, and a little bit of clue hunting. Yeah. War Chief, what keeps you playing this game? Do you ever get bored? I do get bored. I think a lot of it is just being a super endgame Ironman for, I've been max for like 4 years now, and I think that does take a toll. But what keeps me playing the game is like I do get those glimmers of just, when you haven't played for a couple days, it's like, oh, man, I love the idea of playing. I still love the game. I still want to see this game like thrive in every way. I love the community. I love talking with you guys about updates. You guys get me excited about stuff. And what keeps me playing is, obviously there's like a paycheck on the line at this point, but really it's so much more than that. Like, I would love to still be able to log into my account in 8 years from now, 10 years from now, 12 years from now. It's just still log in and see this accumulation of like my digital life, almost like just like accumulation of what I've done. Like as corny as that sounds, as kind of nerdy as it sounds, it's cool. Like I love having an account that I've put so much time into, and it shows. So Time Door, would you support an IRL means of gaining XP, such as a step tracker for minuscule agility gains as an example? Probably not. But there is foot pedals. You could use a foot pedal. You could somehow implement a foot pedal into your elliptical. Yeah. What is the problem, if any, with stackable clue scrolls? The problem with stackable clue scrolls is it inherently changes what clue hunting is, which is a distraction and diversion. So will it be added? Probably. But again, it's just you're fundamentally changing what clue scrolls are about. Now it just becomes a grind where it's just any other grind. You just stack up a bunch over a year, send them all at some point. It's like that just gets rid of the distraction and diversion aspect of it. Jack and Chapman, how would you shake up the Ironman crafting meta of glass blowing hundreds of thousands of items? Excuse me. I've had suggestions for this. One of them was the Dorgish Con lamp fixing idea that I had. I actually have a video on that, so you guys can go check that out. Just look up Sebe Dorgish Con on YouTube and you'll see my video. It's basically a method where with your blown glass and your cave goblin wire, you make orbs and you run around Dorgish Con and get really competitive XP rates by just running around and repairing lamps. And the lamps would be updated to not be just ridiculously RNG based and everything. Like there could be like a really fun method where you just continually go in this cycle around the city and repair these lamps. And I think there could be something pretty addicting about that. And you would actually have use for those orbs. Jay Bizzle, opinion that when sailing will be released, it can change the entire top age high scores. Yeah, this is not really an opinion I think about too much, but like I think it is optimally, and I don't think this could be retroactive, but like optimally, I'd love to see OSRS high scores have an end of the year thing where like you could click on the date and you could click end of 2013. Boom, you click and there's like a screenshot. You know, it loads all that data of what the OSR's high scores looked like at the very end of 2013. Then you go to end of 2014 and see, boom, you have the full cache of all the high scores that were, you know, the end of 2014. And you could like relive that history of like, oh, wow, like these were the players back then. End of 2015, boom. So you have this history, like this catalog of like all the years, like who were the top players at the end of these years, like who got 200 mils at these end of the years. Like, I think that would be really cool to have. So I don't think we have the retroactive ability to do that, but that would be my optimal solution. But I don't think it's appropriate to like, I think the way to go about this new skill is, I'm sorry, but the high scores are going to get scrambled. Like Lynx Titan's not going to be rank 1 anymore, and I don't think he should be if he's not going to get sailing first, basically, compared to like the other 200 mil all players. But I think the best way to go about it would be to just have these catalogs showing who the top players were for their time period. Can you add timestamps to your Spotify podcast? I actually can't with my podcasting host service. I actually checked that when I saw this. I'm sorry. Maybe in the future I could. Overweight Father. If you were to make a new account, what mode would you play? Ironman. I'd still play Ironman. Potentially group Ironman if I had a fun group. Russell Johnson, what is your favorite item stack that you have on your account? Ooh, probably... Probably my purple sweets, I guess. Trying to think. I mean, I've collected like 25,000 purple sweets. I only have like 12,000 currently. I've eaten a ton. But, yeah, I don't know. Stacks, it's like hard to say. Joe Barbuti, if you could remove a single piece of content from the game, what would it be and why? Probably the wilderness the chaos altar. I just not a fan of that update at all. It made prayer a wilderness skill for Ironman, for all Ironmen. Like it's entirely, you're trolling if you're not doing that. And I really appreciated the old school nature of doing prayer training, which some mains get to enjoy if you want to have the higher cost associated with it. But it's like building your gilded altar room, you know, pimping it out, and then just relaxing doing your prayer. Going to your POH, lighting the incense, using the bones on the altar. And, you know, it's slower. Like prayer was very respectable for a skill at the time. Nowadays, it's like you just have so many, like prayer is the easiest skill ever, which, you know, that's another discussion to be had. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I just hate the idea that you kind of feel obligated to go out in the wilderness for that skill now on an Ironman. I think it's silly. They still could have come out with like a Chaos Altar, but it did not need to be double, the cutting the amount of bones you need or cutting the bones you need for 99 in half. I think they could have made it like 10% better or something, but it's just stupid. How much do you bench? I actually don't know because I haven't been to a gym in like 7 years, but I could probably bench a decent amount. In college, I actually have a video of me benching 265 when I was like 20. So, yeah, I mean, I naturally, I think like my chest, I'm blessed with a pretty decent chest. Like if I choose to build it, I can't say the same thing about my biceps. My biceps take a lot. I have to really hit my biceps if I want them to grow. But bench wise, I've always had that's been my strong suit. So I would actually be really interested to go to a gym now and just see, obviously initially when you're getting back into it, like I do a bunch of push-ups and that's not the same thing as just pumping weight, but it would be cool to see what I could accomplish in just a few months of going to the gym again. RS Dude T-Som. If you did a group Ironman, would it be with hardcore or regular? Probably hardcore. Just so there would be a reason to quit at some point. Beta Supreme. Do you think Jagex should allow players to use Maxcapes on sailing release in some capacity? No. I don't think sailing is going to take more than like a month for a max player to reobtain their Maxcape. And I think it's just going to be really fun and cute seeing a bunch of max players not have that and just everyone going around without a Maxcape and just embracing that for a while. I think that's just going to be really fun. So I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. John K, how are you? I'm doing great. I'm getting a little tired. It's like 10 p.m. right now, but yeah. Any advice on habit creating and replacing? I'm trying to start new routines and have a hard time. Not really RS related, so I'm going to just not cover that one. I hope you understand. Jay Bizzle, since botting is not heavily moderated, and with everyone saying that botting doesn't get punished, you think it'll actually motivate people to bot? I think there have been an influx of bots and botting going on because, yeah, I mean, people get away with it. So I don't bot. I'm not in that scene at all. I have no idea the actual severity of the problem. I really don't, besides just surface level seeing it in game. So I have no idea how massive that black market is, but yeah, I would say it probably is motivating people to bot, especially when you start seeing things like Duke mining where people have gotten to the point where they're almost celebrating the fact that they can just play for 6 hours at a time, which is, I know some people say that's not botting, but having your account progress when you're not at the computer for 6 hours is kind of the definition of botting. In my opinion. I need kill. What's your favorite dinosaur? T-Rex. I don't know. Toilorg. What rate would you be okay with Duke mining? Duke mining is gone. I think they made a great decision just buffing star mining. I think star mining is actually a great... it's fine for the game. I really don't have a problem with star mining currently. I know there's some discussion to be had maybe on balancing, but for the most part, I really do not have a problem with people AFKing for 15 minutes at a time. They still have to click whenever the rock depletes. They have to click again, and they're gonna just chill out with the boys, get 30k XP an hour. I'm really okay with it. I think if anything, if that's too incentivized, I think instead of nerfing star mining, first of all, never bring back Duke mining. Just being in a private instance yourself compared to star mining is just ridiculous. But I think if star mining is too incentivized, instead of nerfing star mining, just buff other methods. Personally, that's my take. Do not click on my name, Mr. When was the last time you got burnt out from OSRS? Last year. I think after TOA was released. That was kind of my beginning of a decent burnout, but it really was just more of like realizing I'm getting old and I have to start changing like habits of mine. Like I don't want to just wake up and be 42 years old and realize like, oh, I'm still playing this game 8 hours a day and I haven't even focused on anything in my real life. So it was really that, like, just grappling with the fact that I'm a human being and I have life goals. And I think that idea kind of burnt me out from just dedicating my whole mind and soul into this goddamn game. So thoughts on these shooting stars? I think they're great. Like I just stated, I don't think anything really needs to change with it other than just buff other methods so they're more incentivized to do. So, yeah. I believe I heard you in a previous cast on Growing Up Mormon. How was it, and do you still practice it today? So, as I stated, I will address. I have so much to talk about when it comes to my Mormon upbringing and my current, affair with it. But yeah, I'd love to talk about this in a future ramble. Let me know. Like this video. Drop a comment down if you guys are interested in me doing more IRL things, talking about this. So yeah, and if you guys are interested, I will make another community post, and you guys can offer more IRL topics. Do you know the Muffin Man? No. Cocaine or Adderall? What do you take before you're rambling? So I swear, like, I did have a time, I think it was during my burnout, I would get overly hyped. I felt like I forced my ramble voice, like my YouTube voice. Like I forced it too much because it was like I was like kind of like trying to compensate for my lack of playing as much. And there was like that compensation of like acting overly excited about certain things and kind of yelling into the mic. So it really wasn't ever on Coke or Adderall. I've never taken, I've actually, yeah, well, we'll cover that for another thing. But no, like I've never been into that, like, so not to say I've never tried it, but I've never been into those. So yeah, it was never that. I used to get high thinking about ramble topics, and then I never really rambled high. I think I had a couple Sabate casts where I was high, but I don't smoke marijuana anymore. I don't do any drugs anymore. So no, that was never part of the ramble process. Victor Reznov, have you ever had any casts that were so bad you didn't publish them? Almost. I've published every single one I've done, though. I have deleted. There is one that I actually removed, which is the B5 cast, and that's because he was just harassing people on Twitter, and I didn't like what he was doing, so I just decided to hide his episode because, yeah, I don't think it was good publishing his stuff because he was being an asshole. So, and there was no apology or anything. Like I know, like he was really upset with his episode getting removed, but it's like he never asked to have it be brought back up, and I think it's just because he's realizing like he wants to remain an asshole. So yeah, I took that upon myself to just remove his episode. Are you related to Macklemore? No. What is the question? I don't know. Why do you wear wigs, or when will you wear the wigs? That is funny. That is the Lord of the Rings Frodo thing video. Why do AFK content during your podcast? That is part of the Sabate cast. Now, keep in mind that I do not have video on my podcast. So I would like to have some sort of visual going on just because I'm uploading. I don't want it to just be a thumbnail and then us talking or just like a Discord bubble going back and forth. I think it adds a little bit to the podcast, even if it's just a little bit. And yeah, I think at this point, after 136 episodes, I think people kind of like don't mind it and kind of enjoy it in a sense, just seeing my very AFK progression on my account. Have you ever played Toontown? Because I think you're drawing unfair comparisons. That game is truly horrible. I actually did play Toontown, yeah, for about a month. I got like a membership, and it was not a good time. What's your thoughts on a new spell, Bones to Mango? I'd be okay with that. Okay, that finishes all of the topics. So, hour and 14 minutes, not bad. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully I, was able to kind of answer you guys' questions on this. Again, let me know if you're all interested in a more IRL focused Ramble AMA. And yeah, I'll make like a community post on it, and I will definitely love to cover that with you guys. So thank you, as always. Thank you again for your continued support. As I stated in the beginning, I love you guys. Thank you. Thank you for letting me do what I do. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.